So you're like the sort of Jack Dorsey or Elon Musk of the lifestyle brand, fashion / real estate development world. Are there similarities between these industries?
Well, I think absolutely. I think first of all, you know, the fashion world and obviously the world of real estate, great companies, exceptional companies are intensely focused on execution and detail. And I think that is very true in both of these industries, and that's very core to who I am as a human being in terms of pushing myself and my team, because that, you know, the difference between something that's good and something that's great, and there's a lot of good out there, there's a lot of not so good, but there's certainly a lot of good and a lot of the sameness, but it really comes down to that last 10%. I also think ultimately it's about brand building. We're in a climate where everyone's your competition. Everyone's starting to create brands and hyper-focused on brands, so authenticity is critical. And in both of our businesses, both at Trump, where I spearhead development and acquisition alongside my brothers and obviously my father, and at my own business, we're very focused on creating and ensuring that we maintain that authentic voice and authentic brand promise. And we've done that very successfully over the years, and I think that's why each of those brands have flourished.
You know, I sometimes speak about women in power, and women tend to think about power in a more multidimensional and kind of horizontal way than men often do. This is a little bit of a stereotype, but men often dream of, you know, power is the next step on the ladder. So I also think a lot of women in this audience and a lot of women out there watching this in the virtual community dream of doing two things, two different things, and also having a family as you do. You have 2 small children and one on the way. Yes. Congratulations.
I'm 5 months pregnant with my 3rd, so it's very exciting.
So how do you decide?
Just adding another layer of chaos. Only when you have 2 children can you say pregnancy is the calm before the storms.
How do you decide how to divide your time between the Trump organization, your real estate work, and you're building your own company and your own brand?
So I try not to compartmentalize so much in terms of how I rationalize on my schedule, but rather think about where my time is best spent and where I'm needed. So in all elements of my business, I'm always trying to think about how to leverage myself for the ultimate benefit of both of the companies. And if there's something somebody can be doing better, I shouldn't be doing it. If there's something I'm not doing as well as somebody who we have yet to hire, then we look to fill that void. So I'm always trying to leverage myself to the best of my abilities to enable me to do as many things. And ultimately, I think that's the only way you can scale in a real way. Really being honest and assessing your team, ensuring the team complements you, both for your strengths and perhaps more importantly, your weaknesses. You can't do anything in a vacuum, so you know, having those strong teams in both places is critical, and it's organic. It's always evolving as the business climate change, as your aspirations and goals change, and as businesses grow. So, you know, each day looks very, very different, and truthfully, that's part of what I'm so passionate about. I think more than being a developer, more than having my own fashion brands, I think of myself as an entrepreneur who keeps my eye open for exciting opportunities. And you have to have bandwidth in your schedule. Despite how busy you are, you have to have a little bit of space to be able to take that meeting that's not as strategically relevant to everything on your plate. So it is important to be surrounded by people that you trust. And it's important to spend your time wisely to enable you to find that next opportunity.
So we have an interview series with Facebook called The Chat, and this is being live streamed on both Fortune.com today and on Facebook, and we have a few questions from the Facebook community, and this comes from Erin Murray Manning out there. Thank you, Erin, for this question. Ivanka, do you have any daily routines or life hacks that help you organize your life? What's your best life hack?
Well, I think organization is critical. So that part of the question is absolutely critical. And I think about my schedule, and people talk about balance and finding balance, but in and of itself, balance implies a scale which never stays in balance for very long. So rather, I try to make sure that my life is generally architected around the priorities that I've set for myself. And I try instead to be reflective of, was I in the right place at the right time? Was I with my kids when they needed me? Was I working on the deal that I needed to be working on at the right time? So, I think just making sure to constantly reflect on that and making sure that your day lines up. And I ask myself that question every week.
What do you do, though? Give me a practical organization tool.
In terms of my life, I've decided my priorities, always family. I mean, always my children come first to me. That doesn't mean that I'm not incredibly focused and driven and ambitious in a professional capacity, but my husband and my children and my family are always my top priority. So I ensure that I have my mornings with them. It's very unusual to not have a morning with them, and my evenings with them. So I come home, I make sure my last meeting's at 5:30, which gives me around half an hour to 45 minutes to return phone calls that I was unable to return given a hectic day, clear my plate a little bit, walk down the hall, go into people's offices and chat to follow up on things. And then I race home. I live a couple of blocks away. I get home, we do dinner together, I do bath time, I do books. By 7:30, 7:45, now with Arabella, she's pushing me, so she's moving me into the 8s, but I try to have both kids asleep, and that's a time that then I connect with my husband, we go to dinners, oftentimes we have work commitments during the week, and then unfortunately, I'm back to work at 11 o'clock at night, but that's, for the flexibility of leaving the office at 6, it means I have to catch up somewhere. So it means sleep is something that at this point in my life, as much as I recognize the importance of, is the area that's probably suffered the most.
What's your average hours?
Not much. I probably, and it's not something I'm proud of. In an ideal world, I'd love, it's actually not that healthy, but to be able to accommodate my
What's your average?
Top priorities, 5 hours, 4 hours?
Yeah.
5 hours. So, I come back, and oftentimes from 11 until who knows when, I'm catching up. Mm-hmm. So I really try to do in the office the things that I can only do in the office, which is meetings, which is interfacing with people, and then the things that I can respond to on my own time, I do so at the end of the day, which tend to be emails. I also think weekends are incredibly important for me. So unless I have a wedding or something I truly can't get out of, I will not schedule things on the weekends. Mm-hmm. Friday, I cooked family dinners. We all come together. Until Saturday night, we don't take any commitments. That's our time to sort of reconnect. We play board games. We go for walks in the park. We're just together. And then Sunday as well. So it's very rare that I'll take on a commitment, a personal commitment or otherwise during the weekend.
So Ivanka, what is the best business building advice that you learned growing up? And what is the best new piece of business building advice that you acquired running your own business?
Well, I think on a basic level, to succeed in any business, you have to be deeply passionate about it. You really have to find what it is that you want to spring out of bed to do. Not every morning you spring.
Is that what you learned as a child?
I did, and it was something that my parents really instilled in me. They challenged me many, many times, to the point where it made me a bit self-conscious about whether they thought I was capable. I was at Wharton School of Finance. Why do you keep asking me if I'm going to go into real estate? I'm majoring in it. But they really challenged me to ensure.
Really?
Yeah, no, it made me a little nervous. But they did it with my brothers as well. They really wanted to make sure that we were doing things out of passion and out of love rather than out of obligation. Because I look around and I have the great fortune of having grown up and now increasingly being surrounded by people that are playing at the highest level in their field across many, many different industries. And that's something they all share. Nobody's phoning it in. And the people who start to do that slowly recede, and that may be okay. They may be at a different point in their lives where their goals are less ambitious, but you don't build an impactful business by not being deeply passionate about it. So I think on a basic level, I always tell young people, you really should use those years when you're in high school and college, your early years out of college, to just try a lot of different things and find what it is that you really enjoy doing and can envision doing for the rest of your lives. And I think now, the advice is largely the same. I think on a more granular level, I would say I look back, and once in a while, having grown up a little bit in the public eye, I have the fortune or misfortune of seeing interviews of myself when I was 18, and I had such confidence. I was so explicit in terms of what I wanted to do. It was so, I'm going to change the Manhattan skyline. I'm going to build X number of buildings by the time it was much more structured. Now I think I have a much more organic, holistic approach to my future. I want to go where opportunity takes me. I never envisioned creating a brand of my own, and it became very clear to me after I launched a category that I felt fine jewelry was the first, and then subsequently I launched shoes and handbags. But I launched jewelry, and I realized most of the luxury jewelers, they were only speaking to the man. But there was this whole generation of women who were self-purchasers, who they wanted to spend that bonus they had earned. They weren't just waiting for their anniversary. Now, we all like our anniversaries, right? But they were purchasing for themselves, and nobody was talking to them. The success of that emboldened me, and I entered categories such as footwear and handbags, which was geared towards which was more accessibly priced and geared towards this millennial audience that my brand is really targeting today. But really, I wanted to create solution-oriented product for this next generation of working women who's working hard, as you mentioned, at all aspects of their life. And I think this caricature persists, unfortunately, that we are sort of one note. You don't say working man, but you say working woman. And when you say working woman, it does arouse this connotation, which I think is not true. It's a fiction, but it still persists in pop culture. And I think I had the good fortune, The Apprentice gave me a level of celebrity that as a young person, I was a businesswoman, but there was some pop culture recognition. It allowed me to really speak about this and talk about how I'm deeply passionate about changing the narrative around what it looks like to be a working woman today. We're mothers, we're wives, we're sisters.
And that's what the campaign, #WomenWhoWork, is all about.
Yeah, and I created a website, IvankaTrump.com, that it's not an e-commerce site. It's really about celebrating women, giving women tips and life hacks, not in a condescending way, not in a judgmental way, not saying do this or do that, but rather celebrating the fact that we're all trying to do our best and our priorities shift. My priorities today look different than they did 10 years ago, and I'm sure in a decade from now they'll look different as well.
So Ivanka, are you happy that your father is running for president?
That's a complicated question. So happy is an interesting word. I'm incredibly proud of him. It's a very difficult thing to do. And I see now just how difficult it is, and he's achieved tremendous success. He's was not a politician. He is not a politician. But he's really changing the dialogue, and he's really disrupting the process in a very positive way. So I'm incredibly proud of him. So as a citizen, I love what he's doing. As a daughter, it's obviously more complicated because the level of interest and scrutiny is beyond anything I've ever experienced, and I think that's, I guess, to be expected.
Are you
he's
surprised?
Doing phenomenally well, and couldn't be more proud of him. I have the unique advantage as both his daughter, but also as his colleague. Having worked alongside of him and for him, I've seen him inspire tens of thousands of people throughout my lifetime to achieve great things. And he is an unbelievable leader. He's an unbelievable businessman. And I've seen it time and time again. The people who work with us and for us are incredibly passionate about what they do and committed to his standard of excellence. And he helps them create their own bar, which is higher than he even sets for them. So he really empowers people. So I've seen him as a leader be exceptional, as a negotiator. There's no one I've ever met that's close, but also as a parent. He's been an unbelievable parent to my siblings and myself, and I'm deeply grateful to that. I think now, more than ever, having children of my own, I think, when I was 15, I was a little less appreciative. Now I realize it's really hard. It's really hard to raise your kids with the right values and to give them the right moral compass and to instill in them a sense of drive and work ethic and passion for whatever it is that they want to do. So I feel very grateful to have had the parents I had, and so I'm amazed by him.
Mm-hmm. Does it surprise you the resonance that he is having out there in the public?
It doesn't surprise me.
Why?
He is really thoughtful. He's a pragmatist, and I think he's saying, look, for a long time, politicians have been talking, but it's been a lot of talk and not a lot of action, and I think he's known for action. He's also, unguarded in his opinions. He says what he's thinking. So whether you disagree or you agree, I think people appreciate the candor of his dialogue, his accessibility, his willingness to talk about really complicated issues in a way that other people are not so willing to talk about, and are really have been skirting. So, I think he's addressing some real issues head on. So regardless of whether you agree, and clearly a lot of people do, given the fact that he's leading in all the Republican polls and has been for many months, but it's sort of regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, I think everyone can appreciate the fact that he's creating dialogue around some very real issues facing this country.
Ivanka, I have to ask, Megyn Kelly was on the stage yesterday. I interviewed Megyn. I asked her about her feud with your father, and I would just like to ask you, have you talked to your father about that, about the Megyn Kelly situation?
Have I talked to my father about? Well, I was at the debate.
Right. Yes,
so
you were there.
I was present.
Yeah.
So yes.
I'm wondering, did he ask for your advice there? Did you give him any advice after that happened and the sort of public uproar over it continued? And does he take your advice on that sort of stuff?
My father's an unbelievable listener. And I don't think people realize that until they actually know him. And he does, he ultimately makes his own decision, and that's what any leader needs to do. Uh-huh. You absorb as much information, as many diverse viewpoints as possible, and then you reach a conclusion. That's a necessary step in terms of being a successful leader. But so he very much listens, and that was very sensationalized and very much sort of for TV what transpired both during the debate and following. I think in terms of the amount of interest and analysis of the feud, and so truthfully, it didn't interest me that much.
Uh-huh.
I can only speak to the experience I've had. I'm a female executive at his company at the highest level, and I wouldn't be the person I am today if he didn't deeply believe in opportunity for women. And now it's obvious. We look around, it's any company who doesn't believe in equality for women, any company who isn't hiring women at the highest level and equally with men, is just not going to be relevant going forward. Like, they're just going to fail. Like, that's just what's going to happen. And so that's true of a lot of companies today. Sadly, not most. It's certainly true at the Trump Organization. It's very much true at my own company, which we're really thinking about creating a culture that's conducive to women and what they need from a workplace. And it's something I spend a tremendous amount of time thinking about, to enable opportunities for women to have families and to not be penalized for that, to create cultures, which is something that I learned at the Trump Organization, of meritocracy, which is funny, it's the boss's daughter, but it was true. I would not be there if I wasn't able to excel in that environment. And it's about performance. It's not about the hours you're in the office. It's about productivity. And I think that's what we have to shift the emphasis to. And I think for too long, it's been about sort of physically being present in an environment which is punitive to women who have disproportionately taken care of obviously their families. And that's true with me as well. I'm the one who's more likely to be coordinating school schedules and doctor's appointments. So creating scheduling flexibility and recognizing that performance and results are what's relevant is I think everything going forward.
Well, Ivanka, thank you so much, and continued good luck in building your brand, building skylines across the world. And thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you all. Thank you so much.